One of the hardest things for me to see in a talented painter is when someone is doing the work and on the right path, and suddenly they stop. The results aren't coming quickly enough, the practice gets repetitive, and they start to lose the drive to push through to see the fruits of their labor and master their craft. So today, I want to talk about everything that goes into mastery, and I want to talk about it through the lens of Bo Burnham's masterpiece Netflix special, Inside, and his recently released video, The Inside Outtakes. Before we jump into it, if you're wondering who I am, my name is Chelsea, and I'm an oil painter, and I love sharing everything I know about oil painting and the psychology it takes to master your craft. And if you're wondering who Bo Burnham is, it's probably because you aren't new here. And I suspect there isn't a ton of overlap between my core audience and people who have watched Inside. But today I am here to fix that. So stick around, and if this is your first time here and you enjoy watching this painting time-lapse and hearing me talk about the creative process, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. All right, so before we get started, we need to talk about Inside. So Inside is a musical comedy special that is written, performed, directed, filmed, and edited all by Bo Burnham that captures the experience of living through the pandemic. It's filmed entirely inside his one-room guest house, and aside from being emotionally powerful and poignant and hilarious, it is absolutely masterful in its use of lighting and cinematography. And this week, for the anniversary of Inside's release on Netflix last year, Burnham released a follow-up video comprised of songs, scenes, and takes that didn't make it into the final cut of that special. And it gives us such a powerful look into the creative process that I couldn't help but talk about it here today. And to put this in perspective, I saw one tweet that referred to Inside as the best stand-up special that someone had ever seen, and the Inside Outtakes as the second best special they'd ever seen. That gives you any indication of just how impactful this video of literal outtakes is. So I'm super excited to jump into it today. If you are here, there's a good chance you've watched both of these already, which is perfect. But if you're a subscriber who hasn't seen it and you have no idea what I'm talking about, go ahead and watch through the video, then check out Inside on Netflix, and if you love it, follow it up with the outtakes, which I have linked in the description. And then you might want to come back and check this video out again, just once you have that context in mind. All right, let's get into it. The first takeaway I hope painters and other creatives will take away from Inside and the Inside Outtakes in particular is just how much repetition is required for mastery. I am kicking off with this one because it is the most important thing I could possibly lead with. So over and over in the special, you see just how many takes it required to get the awesome shots that we see in the final version of Inside, the official version of the special. There are multiple times where we see 9 takes of a single part of a song, and it does a lot to hammer home just how there was probably about 10 times the amount of work that went into every performance that we just don't see compared to what we actually do see. And I think we know this intellectually, but when I first watched the special, I found myself wondering how many of these performances required more than one take. Like, it just seemed so natural, it seemed to flow so effortlessly. I just assumed that these didn't take that much practice or rehearsal or trial and error, and I realize now just how foolish that assumption was. And this happens with painting all the time. Trust me, I've talked to enough of you all here on this channel and had just other conversations with painters enough to know. We overestimate people's talent and instinctual gifts and assume that when we fail and have to try again at something, it says something negative about our own potential. We assume that every painting a master created was, in fact, a masterpiece, but there were likely countless paintings lost or discarded because they didn't hold a candle to the pieces we all have come to know and love from that artist. And to drive that point home, after seeing multiple videos that had at least 9 takes for them, we come to the next set of takes from Welcome to the Internet. There were 35 of them. for just this one, maybe 30-second portion of this song. Just Bo Burnham wearing the exact same costume with the exact same lighting, singing the same song exactly the same way, in near perfect sync with one another until, take by take, he falters, he misses a word, or comes in late, and we see him go ahead and cut. So if the Inside Outtakes showed me anything, it's that maybe I need to be more thankful to make one good painting out of every 35 attempts. Maybe we all should be, instead of expecting to nail it every single time we sit down at the easel. But more importantly, we have to get through those attempts. We can't expect to get the one effort where we nail the performance and show ourselves that we can actually pull it off if we don't put in that work. And I see painters do this all the time. They'll practice through a handful of drawings or paintings and then suddenly stop, even though they were making considerable progress. The thing is, no matter your craft, whether you're here because you're an oil painter and you want to learn the way I work, or whether you're here because you're into some completely different art or craft, you're going to have to put in countless repetitions to reach mastery. So do what you can to reinforce that practice and make it a regular part of your life, and trust that if you continue to put in the work, you will eventually see that payoff. Along similar lines, I want to point out just how much testing went into making all of these takes possible, all of these scenes possible. Near the beginning of Outtakes, we see Burnham experimenting with a headlamp in a disco ball, a shot that will ultimately open the special. It's such a simple but dramatic and kind of hilarious opening that I'm not sure you can imagine inside without it, which becomes especially clear when you see 5 takes at the same opening that look almost nothing like the final shot. The lighting is loud with these psychedelic colors that overpower the punch that the song actually delivers. And we see this throughout the Inside Outtakes, trying out different visual approaches to match the song and seeing which is the best fit to tell the story in a compelling way. As an example, we see 7 shots for the second song, Comedy, that never made it, and as many different camera angles and lighting setups that we just never saw, including scenes lit with a black light, a giant glowing purple cube, or a shot of Bo reflected through the corner of a mirrored desk. It's a really cool, creative shot. I mean, all of these are. And I saw one reaction to the Outtakes that commented on how much credit and respect is owed to theater techs and lighting experts, because the Outtakes really, it makes it so clear that getting these amazing shots, it's not about flipping a switch. There's clearly countless testing, experimenting, and tweaking that goes into every single moment of this special. And every scene is so visually unique from every other one. It really does show you how much you can accomplish with very simple tools, provided that you do the dirty work and literally work at the task at hand from every possible angle until you know precisely what works best. Too often, though, I see artists not do this and only use what's convenient. A really good example of this actually comes from reference. So only using reference that they found from a quick Google search, or painting from a photograph that they didn't take. Basically, giving someone else full creative control and then just kind of copying that instead of really working to create something new and interesting that's unique to your own voice. The reality is, though, that the magic of Inside came through all of that testing and tinkering and just trying stuff out, and the same is going to be true for your art, but you have to put in that work. Your favorite painters, they hire models, they test lighting, they test costuming, they test props, they look for exactly the right weather conditions and try numerous poses to get precisely what they need for their masterpiece. And if you're serious about taking your work to that level, you can't expect to get there if you are just taking what you're being handed and not putting in that preliminary work to really see what's possible and what best fits your vision. Along similar lines, the third big takeaway I got from the Inside Outtakes is just how much planning it took to get everything just right. We heard so many alternate lyrics to the Grammy Award-winning All Eyes on Me. We saw numerous shots testing various gels in front of lights to find interesting color, not to mention the amount of rehearsal that clearly went into making this special. As an example, there's a shot of Burnham alternately singing and silently mouthing a sock puppet who sings the other half of his song, How the World Works. In it, Burnham clearly knows exactly what the sock puppet is saying and exactly how it fits into the timing of the song and how he needs to be reacting with his own facial expressions to what the sock puppet is saying. And that only comes from rehearsal and planning. And it reminds me of a scene from Inside that wasn't featured in the outtakes, but that features this YouTube-style reaction video to a song that Burnham had just sung previously. Except that once the song ends, it flows right into the reaction video, and suddenly Burnham's reacting to the reaction. At the time when I first saw Inside, I thought a lot about different ways that you could film that, where maybe from a tech perspective, you could actually be genuinely ad-libbing a reaction to your reaction. But I now realize that it probably came down to having scripted the entire reaction and testing it to make sure that the pacing of the reaction matched up exactly where it needed to look genuine and improvisational. I can't imagine how tedious that testing and rehearsal must have been, but I think it underscores my previous point about painters and how they often look for, honestly, the solution that requires the least amount of planning and preparation before they just get into the painting. But when I have talked to master level painters and learned what went into masterpieces, that could not be any further from the truth. These paintings, they took hiring models. They took traveling to the right location with a beautiful vista. They took waking up early to get an incredible sunrise. And that's really just the beginning. For that level of painting, it isn't enough to paint out of your head the way you imagine it, or, as in the previous example, paint from a reference that's handed to you. You have to understand the work that goes into preparing for the painting before you ever put brush to canvas. If you actually do this work and do it well, the act of putting brush to canvas becomes so much easier. Not only that, but it enables you to make work that is truly next level. And I think a lot of painters kind of underestimate this or discount it. Like, they think that these masterpieces just kind of happened, or that it doesn't make sense for them to put in that level of effort or planning. But I've been working with artists for long enough to see just how incredibly their work is transformed when we put the work that they would have spent reworking a painting and struggling with it into the planning stage. Not only does it make the whole process go more smoothly, the difference in terms of the results is phenomenal. All right, and finally, I want to talk about what the Inside Outtakes shows about just how tumultuous the creative process can be. Toward the beginning of the video, Burnham mentions that he had worked for a straight month and still not written or filmed anything that was close to usable for the final version of Inside that we saw on Netflix. At multiple times, he talks about giving up because he feels dejected or he couldn't figure out an ending to the special that felt satisfying. But he also talks about how much he enjoyed being able to come to this work and this project every single day. And I don't think these extremes undermine one another. Instead, I think they're natural facets of the same creative process, and it's important to understand that if you're serious about pursuing a creative calling, you're going to experience both of these. You're going to get stuck on projects and give up. You're going to get stuck on projects and figure it out. You're going to have moments of imposter syndrome or look back at old work and feel embarrassed by it. And you're going to have moments of being totally in love with the creative process too. If I've learned anything about creativity, it's that this is all normal. So I hope you keep going. Keep testing, keep tinkering, keep planning, and keep working. If you're serious about putting in the work necessary to master your craft, I have a free masterclass breaking down exactly how to build your roadmap to your goal and track progress toward your goals, and that's linked in the description. And if you're serious and you know you want to work directly with me to reach those goals, there's a link to apply to work with me through my mentorship program in the description as well. And if you're interested in seeing my available paintings so you can take one home, I've included a link also in the description. And finally, if you haven't watched Inside yet, you can watch it on Netflix, and you can check out the Inside outtakes on Bo Burnham's YouTube channel, which I've linked in the description. Until next time, happy painting, and remember, everyone's a feminist until there's a spider around.